This episode of SecuraTip is brought to you by the SANS Institute. Use checkout code SecuraBit_Tech5 to receive 5% off a course of your choosing. Welcome to SecuraTip Episode 2. In this episode of SecuraTip, we're going to talk about Automator, which is a tool I created to automate the analysis of URLs, IPs, and hashes. Alright guys, thanks for joining me again today. I want to first of all say thanks to everyone for the feedback I got on SecuraTip Episode 1 on Network Miner. We got a lot of good feedback there, and based on that feedback, I went ahead and posted up a follow-up article here at SecuraBit.com where I talk about some other techniques that some prominent people in the industry thought I should highlight, such as Doug and, of course, CID Security. So check out that article if you are curious on how you can extract files from Wireshark or from PCAPs using solely Wireshark and some of their extra options. But today we're going to talk about Automator. So Automator is a tool I wrote over here on my website techdefense.com, and basically what Automator is it's a tool that automates the process of gathering OS intelligence data on URLs, IPs, and hashes. Hashes were just added recently. But basically, what it boils down to is, in my everyday work, I would find myself going, running some query in NetFlow and getting 100 IPs, or running some query in DNS and getting 100 domains that I then had to go and manually check to see what the reputation was. So I would go to sites like urlvoid.com, ipvoid.com, robtex.com, and the like, right? So there's 5, 6 other ones, and they all give good data, but it's different data on each website. So it's not one website I could go to get everything that I wanted. So for instance, URL void here, if I look up, say, techdefense.com, right? So we get the information that we want for techdefense.com, but some of the stuff we're missing here, I could pull from other places like robtex. So robtex, focuses heavily on DNS, so I can give it a IP, and it's going to give me, all the domains that resolve to that IP, along with some other information, and pull some blacklist information. So as you can see, I'm going through a whole bunch of different websites, but this takes time, especially when you're doing it for 10, 20, 30, 100 IPs or 100 URLs. So I'd go to each one of these, and then once you had all the data you wanted, there wasn't really a consistent format with how you received it. So that problem is what Automator was created to address. So get back over here. So Automator by default is installed on HoneyDrive and Kali, the new backtrack. So if you're running HoneyDrive or Kali, you already have it. If you don't, installation's easy. So it's a Python script, but I've also made a Windows executable out of it. You can grab that Windows executable through my download section at techdefense.com, and techdefense.com/automator here will get you to all the stuff you need to see there. But yeah, so go to the download section and you'll see where the exe is available for download if you want to run it on Windows. If you're okay running it on Python, then you can just use git to clone my repository and grab it, or if you don't want to do that, you can just grab the raw text straight off of GitHub and paste it into a file and use that. So once you have it though, using it is pretty much the same. I just want to highlight some things that are different on each platform. So for Windows, it's obviously going to be automator.exe and then your command options, what you want to do. On Linux, if you invoke Python and then automator.py and the command that you want to run. If you ran changemod.x on it to make it an executable, you can just / it like that. And then on Kali, it's a little different. In Kali, you don't have to call out the .py, and you can run it from anywhere because it's in the path directory. So as long as you have Kali, you can run Automator from wherever just by typing just like that. And TAC H is going to show help, but I'm going to get to all that right now. So I'm going to show you this mostly here in Linux, but just to show you that it does work in Windows, here is quickly me running Automator in Windows. Right. So it's going to determine what it is. It determines it's an IP, so it's going to run an IP tool set against it. So this particular IP address has several A records that go to differing things, and it is hosted on a particular blacklist. And here's the ISP information, the URL categorization, and Alien Vault has a record of this as well, which you may want to check out in their reputation database. So you can see the type of information we're going to get. But let's delve into that right now. But we're going to do it over here on the Linux side. So the cool thing about Automator is it doesn't care whether you give it an IP, a URL, or a hash. It's going to determine what those are based on what you put in as a target, or if you give it a file of stuff, it's going to take whatever you give it and then run the appropriate tools against it based on the type of thing it is. So quickly walking through the options, TAC H is help, TAC T is target. So a target can be an IP address, a URL, or a hash. A file, and that file can contain a URL, an IP, and or hashes. You can output to a file, so if you don't want to read it all in terminal, you can export it out to a file. Expand is an option that will unshorten a URL, so if you have a bit.ly, one of those short URLs you want to check out, this option will check and see what the final site that is going to is. So bit.ly/AQF whatever actually goes to techdefense.com. And then source allows you to choose just one particular source engine. If you want to just run something against Robtex or IP Void or Fortinet, URL Void, Alien Vault, so on. That's what the source function is for. Yeah, so those are your options. But let's talk a little bit about the workflow here. So when I do Automator, TAC T, and give it a target, and type in 11.11.11.11, is going to first, the script determines what 11.11.11.11 is, and it decides that, hey, that's an IP void, or that's an IP, so I'm going to run the IP tools against it. So here you go, and you can see it doing that. On that same note, if I give it a domain, it's going to determine that this is a domain. It's going to run domain tools against it, which are different than the IP tools. So you can see we get different output because it's looking at different types of information. So here we see, hey, this is the host IP address for this. The IP is not in any of the blacklist. It's going to give us the latitude and longitude, show us the domain creation time. So this domain was created 7 years ago, the country it came from, and eventually this will show up with the URL categorization of entertainment. So it determines that. On that same note, I can give it a hash, and I think I have one copied already. Yep. So if I give it a hash, it's going to run the hash tool sets, which, and you can see it here, right? It determines this is a hash running the hash tool set. And here we can see that this hash was last scanned on April 1st at ThreatExpert, and it was not found in any of these other databases, and now we can go to ThreatExpert to learn more about that hash. So one more quick thing I'll show you before we wrap this up is the TAC F option. So quickly I'm just going to cat, I think I have some hosts, here we go. So cat host has a couple of IPs, a couple of URLs, and a hash. And when we run automator tac f host against the file, it's going to run it for each one of these. So for each one that comes across, it's going to determine, is it an IP, is it a URL, is it a hash, and then run the appropriate tools against that to gather this information. And the great thing about this is because we're using OS intelligence sources, our attacker is never alerted to us looking them up because we're looking specifically at sources that are available freely online versus going directly to, say, our target and pulling the information. But that covers what I wanted to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed the show, and see you next time.